Okay, okay, everyone, I'm going to start and people can join us as they come in. Okay. Okay. On behalf of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association, I'd like to welcome all of you here today. We have in this virtual event esteemed guests, our volunteer board members, supporters, and all of you who have made a special effort to be here today for International Women's Day and our 38th anniversary. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our volunteer board members. For those in attendance, please wave. First of all, we have Miriam Thomas, our president, who's currently out of the country. Mrs. Jajit Bardwash, no, she's there. Vice President, she's a Vice President. Mrs. Ava Fass, who's the Treasurer. Nita Das, who's the Secretary, and our board members, Papia Das, Janki Shankar, Rajmi Jyoti, Shay Sharma, and Anjali Agarwal. Thanks to all of the staff of ICWA as well, without whom we would not be here today, including Esther, Amrita, Krishna, Komo, Rushika, and Shuab. I would now like to introduce our MC, Adrienne Lam. Adrienne Lam is the host and producer of our Edmonton on CBC TV. Her work is also featured weekly online and on CBC Radio and includes national award-winning feature documentaries about the economy, the military, and the environment. Adrienne is a talented and creative storyteller who enjoys showcasing the community and the characters who call the capital region home. Since launching our Edmonton in October 2013, she has explored more than 300 unique locations. Adrienne has been honored many awards for her outstanding work. Among other projects, in 2019, Adrienne produced an hour-long CBC radio documentary called Smoked Out, or How Wildfires Are Changing Canadian Summers. She followed that work up with a 6-part podcast called World on Fire in 2020. Please let us now welcome Adrienne Lam, our MC, to this event.
Thank you, Jody. That was lovely. So nice to see you all here today. Thanks for making time on this beautiful, snowy Saturday in our Edmonton. It's a pleasure for me to MC this special event, as you mentioned, to celebrate International Women's Day and the Indo-Canadian Women's Association and the 38th anniversary. We're excited to hear from all of the fantastic speakers you and your organization have lined up for us today. Now, of course, we know we wouldn't be here without a lot of the help, guidance, and work of the staff and the board members that you mentioned of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. So I want to take this moment to thank them for all the stuff that they do behind the scenes, personally, on everyone's behalf, for the hard work and the dedication and their ongoing efforts in our community. I'd also like to say that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground and gathering place, a traveling route for the Cree, for the Saulteaux, for the Blackfoot, the Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge the many First Nations, the Métis and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Now today, as we've mentioned, is a special day for the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. We are thrilled to have with us again our guest, Her Honor, the Honorable Selma Lakhani, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, who we'll hear from in a minute. Also, we'll be hearing messages from the Honorable Tim Upo, MP, His Worship Mayor Amarjeet Sohi, MLAs Rod Lyotta and Raki Pancholi, as well as Madam Justice Kular from the Court of Appeals. Thanks all for making time. Now, a little housekeeping I want to get to. We have a jam-packed couple of hours for you. So I've got 3 things I want to just mention now. The first is because we've got so much good stuff packed in, not a lot of time, in fact, no time for questions and interaction with the audience. So there is an option, and you can see it down here on your Zoom for a chat box. So if you do at any point have a question for one of our speakers or a thought, feel free to pop it in there, and the staff and volunteers afterwards will make sure that question gets to the correct speaker and that there's an exchange in terms of an answer. The second thing is that we do have a number of artistic performances and other messages that are videotaped. And during that time, better for the Zoom machine and the way that the internet works is if we shut down our video at that time. So it's just in the corner there, the lower left side. It says stop video. And if you click it, I'll show you what happens. The video stops. So it looks like a scary button, but not so much. And if we could ask you to do that during the video performances, it might make that technical aspect go a little bit more smoothly. The third thing is the microphone, which is again right next to that video button at the bottom there on the left-hand side. If we could mute while we're not speaking, you can see that little mute button in the corner. That, again, will just help to eliminate any background sound that we might have and detract from the speakers and their messages. I would like now to call upon the Vice President of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. She is someone who, over the years, has worn many hats in this organization, Mrs. Jagjit Bardwaj. She's a program chair. She has also taken on past roles as president as well as treasurer. So I'm hoping you can help me to welcome her warmly to the Zoom mic today. Over to you, Jagjit.
Thank you, Adrian, for the nice introduction. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Indo-Canadian Women's Association's celebration of International Women's Day and our 38th anniversary. Our President Miriam Thomas is out of the country, but sends her best wishes. Although International Women's Day is on March 8th, the day is celebrated for the whole month. It was adopted by the United Nations in 1977. The UN theme this year is interesting. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Hashtag breaking the bias. We want to imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. We hope to celebrate women's achievements, raise awareness against bias, and take action for equality. The Indo-Canadian Women's Association was established in 1984 as a not-for-profit volunteer organization. Our mandate is to help women at large, particularly immigrant women, to become fully participating citizens of Canada. From the very beginning, the staff and volunteers of the ICWA have supported victims of spousal abuse. We have helped them access social services, legal aid, and financial support. We are proud that we have published the second edition of our family law guidebook for recent immigrants. In fact, we are now printing it in Hindi. This book, thanks to Canadian Women's Foundation, is a wonderful accomplishment. The past 2 years with COVID-19 have been challenging. But the pandemic did not stop us from providing the services and programs our clients need. Our dedicated staff learned to work remotely and will continue to serve our clients and community. We noticed domestic violence increased during the pandemic. Because of our staff and our strong belief in helping women, we started a new program, the Pro Bono Legal Clinic. Through this program, a lawyer provides the free legal advice twice a month about domestic violence and immigration. We even offer this program in Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, and Gujarati. This clinic has been very popular. We also delivered food hampers to seniors in need. In fact, our staff's ability to speak many languages meant that we could communicate easily with seniors and ensured we delivered exactly what they needed. I'm also proud to say that our organization continually rises to the occasion to serve our community, to help them navigate the immigration system, to seek help for domestic violence, to provide classes about financial literacy, to help grandparents learn to deal with their grandchildren, to conduct important research about domestic violence and abuse, to teach English as a second language, to teach English immigrants to immigrant seniors, to teach to teach our clients basic computer and digital skills. Our goal is to improve the quality of life for women, men, and youth alike. With the support of our board members, volunteers, and staff, we can continue to help our clients long into the future. Your participation today at this event is an important cornerstone to make this happen. I would like to thank our sponsor for today, especially Rick Mallet of James H. Brown, Tracy Brown of the Brown Law Group, and Service Credit Union, to name but a few. I would like to acknowledge our wonderful, engaging speakers. We also look forward to watching and listening to the incredible dancers and musicians who are part of the program. Thank you to Adrian Lamb for kindly agreeing to be your MC again. Thank you to the Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, and His Worship Mayor Amarjit Sohi for taking time out of their busy schedules to appear here today. The ICWA appreciates your friendship, and so do I on a personal level. Thanks as well to the Honorable Timupal MP, MLAs Roy Loyola and Rakhi Pancholi for attending and speaking today. The ICWA would not be as viable as it's today without the dedicated staff and hardworking board members. Thank you. We will now continue with the rest of the program. God bless.
Thank you, Genji. That was lovely, and an excellent overview of some of the many programs I know that the association spearheads. I know we're having more and more people join us as we run through. I just saw Christina Gray mentioned that she's here. So it's just so great to have that kind of community support. And you mentioned this next speaker, and it's my pleasure to be able to introduce her to you now. This is Salma Lakhani, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. Now, of course, the honor has been in our community for many years. The Honorable Salma Lakhani was installed as Alberta's 19th Lieutenant Governor on August the 26th of 2020. Her longstanding service as a community leader and a volunteer has been guided by her deep commitment to the values of pluralism and inclusion, and her dedication to championing those who face barriers in life. She's volunteered for many charitable organizations over her time and received many well-deserved awards, including the Honorary Diploma in Community Services Leadership in 2019 from Northwest College. So it is my pleasure to welcome Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, to the Zoom mic.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I would like to begin by saying that treaty relationships are an essential part of the Crown in Canada, and I am proud to honor and strengthen them in my role as Alberta's 19th Lieutenant Governor. So elected officials, board members, staff, volunteers, and all of you distinguished guests, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so delighted to take part in this annual International Women's Day celebration and to honor the great contributions offered throughout the year by the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. And Jagjit just said that International Women's Day is March the 8th, but it is celebrated throughout the month. I would like to say it should be celebrated throughout the year, every day. So, my husband Zahir and I have had many, many opportunities to attend events organized by the group over the years and truly appreciate every opportunity to reconnect and reaffirm our commitment to your hard work in the community and making the difference that you do every single day. For the past 38 years, the very compassionate people behind the association have worked tirelessly to ensure the well-being, safety, and success of new Canadians, including women, men, and youth. Thanks to their efforts, countless people have found the opportunities, training, and support they need to flourish, and that has resulted in stronger communities for us all. The association's dedication to service reflects an idea that I grew up with in my native Uganda, and that is the African concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu simply translated means I am because we are. When we live our lives in the spirit of Ubuntu, we are working together to create a welcoming and vibrant society where everyone can succeed. Closer to home, we have the concept of Wakotowin, which is a Cree word and denotes the interconnectedness of relationships gesture and ripple out to make a big difference. As Her Majesty the Queen's representative in Alberta, I offer my heartfelt thanks to everyone who works to build positive, meaningful, and sustainable change for women and for our society as a whole. I would also like to thank the wonderful performers who will be sharing their talents with us today, and everyone who will be offering their thoughts and ideas. Thank you to President Mariam Thomas, Vice President Jagjit Bharadwaj, and all the ICWA's volunteer board, staff, and all the volunteers for your shared dedication to opening doors and building a stronger, more helpful future for our sisters here at home and around the world. Thank you. Thank you for including me in this event.
Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Lakhani, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. Thank you so much for these messages of hope, of kinship, and I am because we are. That's a phrase that's going to stay with me. That is a gift that you have given us today. Thank you. While Esther takes a minute, I think what we could do is we could move on to our next speaker, who I know is here, who is the mayor, His Worship, Amarjeet Sohi. So he was sworn in as the 36th mayor of Edmonton on October the 26th of 2021. And when it comes to hats, here's a man who's worn a lot of them, from city councillor to federal cabinet minister, and of course now as the mayor of our fair city. He has been a friend, I understand, of the association for many, many years, and I'm wondering if we could welcome warmly His Worship Mayor Amarjeet Sohi.
Got it. Here we go. Now you can hear me, right?
We can hear you. You can see you. You look fabulous.
Thank you. It's so nice to see you, Adrienne. Even though we are meeting virtually, I just can't wait to be seeing so many friends that are joining here today, and looking forward to seeing you in person and give you a big hug, because we've been missing that warmth from each other. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this celebration of the International Women's Day. I do want to start by acknowledging that we are meeting and speaking with each other from Treaty 6 territory, and thanks to the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries. And we also acknowledge that this is the Métis homeland and the home to one of the largest communities of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. Edmonton is a welcoming place for all peoples who come from around the world to share Edmonton as a home. And together, we call upon our collective honored traditions and spirits to work in building a city for today and for the future generation. I know that my colleague Karen Tang is also also joining us. And I understand there are a number of other friends, such as, obviously we heard from Honorable Salma Lekhani, and, and also I understand that our Leola is going to be joining us if he's not there already. My good friend Raki Pancholi, and absolutely my lovely friend Marnie Banas, that I'm looking forward to, or you'll be looking forward to hearing from. Today, to me, it is a great city to be up, and I think we need to build a city that prioritizes gender equality and actively pursues opportunities to build a more diverse community. So as an International Women's Day comes to a close, it is important that we reflect on the lessons we have learned and carry those lessons forward. Being an advocate of women can start with small acts, such as supporting our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, in ensuring they are able to live in a safe and they are able to live a fulfilling life. I personally have the privilege of being surrounded by strong, impactful women in my life who inspire me every day. My mom managed to raise 5 kids and work on a farm. She has helped me through some of the most toughest moments of my life. And without the support of my wife, Sarabjit, and you know her, and many in the room know her really well, I would not have found my passion for leadership without Sarabjit being by my side. And every day I think about my daughter, a young woman now who deserves to live in a city with equal opportunities. Edmonton made history last October when we elected 8 women who are powerful advocates for Edmontonians who identify as female. Council is committed to using this monumental momentum to push for change to ensure that women have access to support and equal opportunities. While we have made a lot of progress, women who identify with the BIPOC community continue to face increased harassment and discrimination in our city. We all know that hate has no place in our city, but it does exist. And we need to make sure that we continue to work hard to eliminate it. Though we formally recognize International Women's Day in March, this commitment of change impacts for all of our decision making moving forward, as we heard from Honorable Lekhani, that it's not just a day. It is a commitment that we need to make each and every day to move forward together, to break the biases that we hold. I want to thank all the women who were able to be here today to share their stories. And thank you absolutely to the Indo-Canadian Women's Association, a organization very near and dear to my heart, for dedicating 38 years to bettering the lives of women in our city. So congratulations on your anniversary, and so far, looking forward to seeing you in person in the very, very near future. And thank you so much for having me today.
This is Worship, Mayor Amarjeet Sohi. You can see the hands clapping. And, I know that when we got together as an organizing group to talk about today's event, one of the things that the ICWA wanted to stress was, although this is a day and an event and an organization that obviously is dedicated to women, that supporting men, that men who lend their voices, their assistance, that those are the people that we're here to thank as well. We have a number of performers who are lending their support in that way. So we thank Mayor Sohi for his time and dedication. I understand Esther has magically fixed her computer, which means we can hear a video message from MP Tim Uppal. So Esther, would you like to throw to that now?
It is my pleasure as the Member of Parliament for Edmonton Millwoods to extend my greetings to all attendees of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association International Women's Day and 38th Anniversary Celebration. The Indo-Canadian Women's Association has served well over 45,000 clients since its foundation. They have provided countless valuable services and programming for new immigrants, seniors, women, and people from many walks of life in our Millwoods community. On the celebration of International Women's Day, let us continue to break the bias and empower women, providing them the necessary supports and resources to achieve their full potential. I am pleased to congratulate the Indo-Canadian Women's Association on their 38th anniversary, and I welcome everyone and wish all celebrating a happy International Women's Day celebration.
That was the Member of Parliament for Millwoods, Tim Upo. I want to invite another friend of the association to the Zoom mic for you now, MLA Rod Leota from Edmonton-Ellerslie, the riding here. He's also the interim infrastructure critic. Welcome, Mr. Leota, to the event.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all. And of course, I think that being a man and doing ally work with women is creating that space. So, I told her I was going to do this, so I hope that she doesn't mind. I'm actually going to throw and I know you have Raki Pancholi, who's also going to be bringing greetings, but I want to throw to Christina Gray, because I think that as men, it's really important to create that space for women. And I'm so proud to be a part of a caucus that has so many great women doing incredible work. When I think about the work that Christina and Raki do for all Albertans inside of the legislature, it's incredibly impressive. So without further ado, I'm hoping that Christina won't mind bringing the official greetings on behalf of us, along with Raki, of course, because I know she's going to be bringing greetings as well. So I'm throwing over to Christina. Can we unmute Christina?
Hi, everyone. Christina Gray here, MLA for Millwoods, neighbor to Rod Leota. Rod, thank you so much for passing the mic over, but I'm so excited to be here to celebrate International Women's Day and Indo-Canadian Women's Association 38th anniversary. It's so important that we stop and reflect on the contributions women have made in our economy, in our society, and in politics. And International Women's Day, as I understand it, has been celebrated for about as long as Alberta has been a province. When I think about when Alberta was first formed, there were 41 members of the legislature, none of whom were women. And today I'm very proud to be in the Alberta legislature with 25 women and to have been part of a caucus that formed the first gender-balanced cabinet in Canada's history, and to be working under leader Rachel Notley, an amazing female leader. And so I'm honored to work with these talented women each and every day, while at the same time wanting to acknowledge that we are not in a place of equality in our politics, in our economy. When we think about the gender wage gap, when we think about gender-based violence and what's happening in our province. So these are things we need to strive to continue to work towards improving the situation for women. We need to be focused on women's issues. And to that end, I want to say thank you to the Indo-Canadian Women's Association for all of the work you do each and every day to support women, and to each of the amazing women leaders who are on your staff, on your board, who are volunteering in your organization. So thank you for letting me say hello for a brief moment, and I'm so proud to be here and enjoying hearing all of the speakers. Looking forward to the performances. Thank you.
That was Christina Gray. She's the MLA for Millwoods. And before that, you heard from MLA Rod Leota, the Edmonton-Ellerslie MLA. We have referenced, and we will now hear from another MLA, Raki Pancholi. She represents the constituents of Edmonton-Whitemud. She has also served as official opposition critic for Children's Services. And on a special note, the board members wanted me to relay that Mrs. Pancholi's father was one of the founding members of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. So Ms. Pancholi may come by this legacy that she's living honestly through that family legacy. So let us welcome Raki Pancholi warmly.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Adrian, for that introduction. And thank you so much, Jody, for being here today, and to the board members and the staff and the volunteers for putting on this wonderful event. I am just absolutely thrilled to celebrate once again International Women's Day with the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. And actually, Adrian, you actually kind of mentioned something I was going to talk about, which was that I do have a very personal connection to the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. You know, my father was, I believe he was the treasurer back in the day, and as one of the earlier founding members of the Indo-Canadian Women's Association when I was just a small child. And so I actually hear those stories more from those of you who had the opportunity to work with him at that time. My father passed away 27 years ago, so he didn't get to see me in the role that I'm in now. And I do believe he would be incredibly proud of his contribution, but also how this is really furthering the theme of this year's International Women's Day of breaking the bias. I hope he would be deeply proud to see me in the role that I'm in, and that we are tearing down those barriers for women to participate in all parts of life, in leadership roles, in business, in the economy, and really having their voices heard. And I know that the Indo-Canadian Women's Association has been key to that in our community in Edmonton. So much work you've done in terms of integration and settlement resources and access to information and services for families. It's because when we do talk about supporting women, we're really talking about supporting families and their children to succeed. And so I know the great work you've done also in terms of, I appreciate mentioning supporting men, because breaking down those biases as well, particularly in certain cultural communities, it's incredibly important in order to assure that we reach that objective of equality and dignity for all. And with that in mind, it has, of course, been a very challenging few years, and we have to keep making sure that women's experiences and voices are put front and center in any discussions around economic recovery. You know, the shadow pandemic of domestic violence only furthers the gaps that many women have already experienced, simply not feeling safe and secure in their homes and not being able to access supports that they need. That is something that we will have many years of working to overcome the damage that has been done. Domestic violence was an unfortunate reality even before the pandemic, but we know that it has been heightened during this pandemic. And I'm very proud of the work that my colleagues have done to continue to highlight this issue. And I also want to mention that I'm also incredibly proud of some important work that our NDP caucus has been doing around the issue of anti-racism. And last year, we conducted a number of consultations over months with hundreds, if not thousands, of Albertans to talk about anti-racism work and how we can introduce policies and talk about taking real action to improve that, to ensure that all people and all Albertans have access to equality and dignity. And one of the things that's come out of that is our colleague David Shepherd, who's the MLA for Edmonton City Centre, just last week introduced a private member's bill in the legislature to collect race-based data. And that means race-based data would be collected by all provincial ministries and services, because in order to address systemic racism, we really need to understand how access to supports and services is different across different ethnicities and different cultural groups and language barriers. We can't really take meaningful action unless we have the information. So I'm very proud of this work that my colleague has brought forward, and we truly hope that it will be adopted by the legislature and we can move forward to really profoundly address systemic racism. And so as we move forward, on behalf of my colleagues, Christina Gray, Rod Loyola, who are here, as well as all of the members of our NDP caucus, and of course, our leader, Rachel Notley, we will continue to advocate for making sure that all women have access to supports and services, that we lift everybody up, that we don't have a race to the bottom in terms of economic recovery, because when we know that we lift everybody up, it really does serve all of us very well. And so thank you to all of you for hosting this event again. Cannot wait to do it in person. So happy to see so many friendly faces. I'd like to say thank you to Mayor Sohi, to Honorable Salma Lakhani, to Justice Kular, who I know is here as well. And just cannot wait to see you in person. To all the board members, thank you very much. And I look forward to today's activities and events.
Ms. Rocky Pancholi. She represents the riding of Edmonton White Mud here in our Edmonton. It's a lot that we've absorbed, that we've taken in thus far. And I think I promised entertainment. Let us deliver with a little musical interlude now. If I could kindly, because we're going to throw to some tape, ask you to stop that video in the bottom left-hand corner, just so that Esther's computer can keep chugging along. This is an entertainment provided by a pianist out of Toronto, Shoshana Tellner. She is somebody who has been described as an authentic musician with a sparkling technique, full of fire and warmth. She made her solo orchestral debut with the National Arts Centre Orchestra at the age of 16. And since then, she's performed as a soloist with a number of orchestras. And I thought we would hear Shoshana play the Italian Concerto Presto by Johann Sebastian Bach. The Brilliance of Bach and the Italian Concerto Presto, performed by Shoshana Telner. A bright, light, and I think apt way to slide into Karen Tang, who is the city councillor in the area called Ward Garahio, which is in South Edmonton, covering Millwoods and vicinity. Karen Tang is a public health advocate. She's a community organizer, city builder, a mom, and she has had experience working in a number of sectors, from public to private to the not-for-profit sector. She's also lived in many cities around the world, and Karen has chosen to make her home here in Edmonton with her husband and with her daughter, because she believes that Edmonton is a city where everyday Edmontonians and their voices can shape our present and our future. So I would like us all to help welcome, there she is, Councillor Karen Tang, as our first of 3 keynote speakers today. Karen?
Thank you so much, Adrian, for that introduction. Hello, everyone. Namaste, Sasrika, Salam, good afternoon. What a privilege to be with you today, with friends, with community, with colleagues. Mr. Mayor, I know he had to log off, with your honorable, to celebrate International Women's Day and Indo-Canadian Women's Association. So my name is Karen, and I am your city councillor representing Ward Garahio here in Southeast Edmonton, right where Indo-Canadian Women's Association is located. And I'm pleased to join you from Treaty 6 territory in Amiskwitchi, Waskaikegan. And for those of you who don't know, the name of this ward, Garahio, is an Iroquois word, meaning big tall forest. It's a tribute to Michelle First Nation in Alberta. It's a group that is still fighting for federal recognition as a nation. And in fact, if we take a moment to learn about these war names, there's such rich history embedded. And I encourage you, if you haven't already, to check out the city's website to learn more. And you know, when these new war names were introduced for the election last year, the change was met with a lot of mixed reactions. Some confusion, you know, why are we doing this? Some frustration, how to pronounce some of the words. Some happiness to see the steps that we're taking as a city towards truth and reconciliation. And for me, these new Indigenous names are an important way for us to make another connection to Treaty 6 land that we're on as Edmontonians, wherever we may be from. And many people may not know this, but the names were actually developed in ceremony by a group of Indigenous women. Now this matters. There are many societies around the world that are matriarchal in nature, historically and traditionally. They're led by strong women. And while we've made progress, and progress we've made in Parliament, in the legislature, and even City Council, and I am proud to be one of 8 women elected to this City Council in 2021, and one of 2 racialized women elected in the history of the city. But there's still much farther to go to see women in leadership roles across all fields. And just imagine if we had more women in positions of power, I argue, we would not be seeing the kind of atrocities and wars that we're seeing today. I want to thank the Indo-Canadian Women's Association for inviting me here to be part of the celebration, for all the staff, board members, and volunteers for your hard work in pulling this together. As an immigrant who came to North America at the young age of 11 with a single suitcase and knowing just one phrase in English, hello, where's the bathroom? I am so grateful for your work and organizations like yours that support newcomers to feel at home in Canada every day. And I initially moved to North America actually to reunite with my mother, who I was separated from for many years as she pursued her studies and career abroad. She was a scientist and the first PhD graduate in medicinal chemistry in China post-Cultural Revolution. She came overseas, probably like many people you might know, for study and work, and she worked hard to bring me over for a new life. And growing up, I fulfilled all the stereotypes and biases that were of the immigrant Asian girl. I was always in the back of the classroom, too timid and too scared to speak up for myself, still struggling with English as my second language. I lived in a largely white middle-class town. I watched my own mother, a highly educated, highly classy woman, being constantly put down for her accent and perhaps this lack of integration into mainstream culture and norm. I didn't know at that time that was sexism or even racism. And I was actually embarrassed. And when I was out in public, I was too embarrassed to be seen speaking Chinese with her. I didn't want to be different. I wanted to blend in. And it took me a while to get to this point of finding my authentic voice and unabashedly embracing my culture, my language, and who I am. And despite that, I am still very much aware that the experiences my mom and I had back then are still here in today's day and age. And you know, I come from a country where voting and running for office are not people's lived realities. And so winning in this last election means the world to me. Of course, for the obvious reasons, but also because I heard loud and clear from Ward Heal that people welcomed a different kind of voice and different kind of leadership style. One that may be quieter, but strategic and reflective. One that contrasts, you know, with the hero leader that we're really familiar with from men and women in positions of power that is very prevalent, not only in mainstream white society, but also in ethnocultural community context. And this is something we have to work hard to overcome. And so for today, I just want to talk a little bit about the theme for this year's International Women's Day. The United Nations theme is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And it's about, and I quote from the UN website, achieving gender equality in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction, as these are some of our greatest global challenges. And I have to say, this theme was kind of lost this year, and I'm really glad that ICWA, you picked it up for this event. And in the face of the humanitarian climate crises, and they're absolutely intertwined, it can be very difficult to wrap our head around them in an increasingly polarizing and divisive political landscape. And how do we overcome division so that we can make decisions to move things forward for the current and future generations? And I wanted to take a bit of time to share some lessons that have inspired me along the way. And specifically, I like to share some pieces, I've gleaned from a talk I heard once. Nothing original I'm coming up with, but I've learned a lot from others. And it's from a woman named Joanna Kerr. She is currently the CEO of Make Way Foundation, one of Canada's leading philanthropic organizations focused on climate justice. And you can also find some of her insights on TED Talk when she shared her experiences working in environmental justice up north with Inuit communities. And when it comes to polarization, she says, instead of resisting to it or being angry against it and shouting at it through social media, she challenged us to think about how can we work with polarity. And the answer, she says, is using compassion and love to guide change. And she defines compassion as the understanding of the deep connection between us and all living beings. And it might just be the most courageous weapon we can have so that we can forge connections and step into what we have in common. And right now, we're in this moment of reckoning with gender and racial inequity, intersecting with climate and humanitarian challenges. And we can make a choice. On one hand, we can focus on furthering division and this either or thinking and continue to engage in power struggle. And the more we get stuck on whether to promote change or to resist, the more righteous we might become on either side. Or there's another path where we can build on this moment, where we introspect and see across the differences and actually look at the interdependence and interconnectedness of our systems. With the right support, true transformation is possible that inspires cohesion, integration, generative thinking for deep systems work based on new ideas, trust, and relationships. And I think Rocky has heard me talk about this before, but no, for me, it's really important. Listening is important. Understanding, seeing each other for our humanity and finding common ground for progress are important. And these are lessons that are actually guiding my everyday as a city councilor. And if I look around me, those who embody all this as the movers and shakers in our community who are making change through compassion and love are women. I think about, for example, Hansa Teleshavar. When I sought out advice on the campaign trail from her, so she's the former mayor of Cold Lake, one of the first South Asian and racialized women elected to local government in Alberta. I asked her, how do you deal with difficult conversations? And she said, listen deeply, be present, show up for the community. And when I first visited the Ambrose Place, a long, long, long time ago, it's a permanent supportive housing built with an indigenous worldview, serving some of our most vulnerable Edmontonians in the heart of inner city. The executive director, Corolla Cunningham, told me, here at Ambrose Place, it's about love. We do things with love. Nothing groundbreaking, but absolutely transformational. And their words have continued to resonate with me and guide me. And so I really think that it is going to be the women who are going to bind us coming out of this recovery as we continue to tackle some of the thorniest challenges in this world. We are mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, aunties. We're often the primary caregiver in the family, doing double duty with both paid and unpaid labor. We know what it's like to overcome discrimination and to be underestimated always. But we also know how to listen, how to understand and empathize, and these are skills we're constantly sharpening in our daily experiences. And so if I've learned anything during my careers, it's that women make incredible leaders, and we have the power to change our community for the better, for now and for future. So happy International Women's Day, happy 38th anniversary for the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. Keep up your excellent work, truly. The things that you're doing, that's listening, understanding, empathizing, and making change on the ground. So thank you.
Councillor Karen Tang, the authentic voice of Ward Gahahio. And that phrase, compassion and love to guide change. That's another takeaway from our time together. Thank you for that, Karen. So the first of three keynote speakers that the organizers of the ICWA have us for today. The next, when we were talking and you were reflecting, Karen, about intersection, I thought, well, this is perfect. This flows perfectly into Bokola Salami, who's a director of intersection of gender signature area at the Office of Vice President Research, also an associate professor at the Faculty of Nursing at the University of Alberta. Her research has focused on immigrant well-being and health and wellness, and she's been involved with more than 75 funded studies in this area of expertise. She is also an accomplished writer, an associate editor of the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Dr. Salami has received several awards for her research excellence and her community engagement. We thank her for her time and joining us today to celebrate the 38th anniversary, and we turn the mic, Zoom, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me present to you today. I'm just going to show my slides, slideshow. So I'll be talking today about immigrant women's health at the intersections of gender, race, class, and immigration status. Many of the content I'll be discussing today are from various research projects that I have done related to immigrant population in Canada. And as been said, I'm Bukola Salami. I'm the Director of Intersections of Gender Signature Area in the Office of Vice President Research. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that I am located, and I believe many of us are, on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place of diverse Indigenous people, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others whose histories, languages, and culture continue to influence our vibrant communities. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers, either in this generation or in the past generation, and I'm very grateful for the privilege that I have to share this land with Indigenous people. I am mindful of the broken covenant and strive to make this right with the land and also with each other. So the intersections of gender signature area, it's a signature area of research and teaching at the University of Alberta. It's an academic hub focused on promoting intersectional gender research, supporting interdisciplinary research, collaboration, growing inclusive mentorship and teaching, and engaging communities across all aspects, all sectors of gender and intersectionality. We are in the Vice President Research Office, and we are one of 5 main signature areas of the University of Alberta. My research program is the Health and Immigration Policies and Practices Research Program, and the focus is to address gaps in immigration and health policies and practices. And we've been engaged in over 7,500 research projects with 30 collaborators across 30 countries. So what is intersectionality? So Karen Tang discussed intersectionality, and some of our previous speakers discussed the influence or the need to consider intersectional social location. Intersectional theory was introduced by Crenshaw to challenge the idea that race and gender are mutually exclusive categories. Crenshaw argues that the inclusion of a single issue framework, such as a framework only focused on gender or a framework only focused on race, for addressing discrimination, marginalizes racialized women and girls. For example, racialized women and girls are often excluded from feminist discourse and anti-racist policies that are based on the distinct set of experience. So one's experience is not only influenced by your gender, or only influenced by your race, or only influenced by your immigration status, but there are different components that will contribute to your first experience. And it challenges first and second wave feminist perspective that essentializes the experiences of women. So I'll talk about immigrants' experience in Canada. We know that the number of immigrants in Canada continues to increase, that immigrants are more likely than Canadian-born to have completed a university certificate or degree at the bachelor's level, but they are more likely to be unemployed and are more likely to work below their profession. Immigrant women are more likely than Canadian-born women to have completed a university degree at bachelor's level or above. In 2021, 27.7% of immigrant women aged 15 and over had completed this type of credential compared to 19.2. Completion of graduate level studies was also more common for immigrant women than non-immigrant women. However, the unemployment rate for immigrant women is higher than non-immigrant women. So even though immigrant women have more education, their rate of unemployment and the number of those that live below the poverty line is higher than non-immigrants. Immigrant women also experience disparity than immigrant men. They are more likely to integrate slower into the workforce than immigrant men. Of course, oftentimes when a woman and a man come to Canada, sometimes the woman takes care of reproductive care, reproductive labor, of taking care of children, while the men are the one that find it much easier to integrate faster. In 2021, 48% of working immigrant women with a bachelor's degree or higher were unemployed in positions that do not require a degree. And this is in contrast to 32.8% of Canadian-born. And prevalence of low income is higher among immigrant women and girls in Canada. Immigrant women experience in Canada. So finding employment can be a challenge for newcomers in Canada, and the issue can be compounded by difficulties having foreign credential assessed and work experience recognized by Canadian employers. So because of that, there's a high degree of education to job mismatch. Immigrant women have fewer local social connections, and social capital is important in terms of being able to find a job and being able to connect in Canada. And immigrants are less likely than immigrant Canadian-born to participate in organizations and associations. So we know that immigrants tend to arrive in Canada healthier than Canadian-born, contrary to popular opinion. And this is because of selection factors that tend to prioritize individuals that are much healthier. So if you're coming through economic class, you're more likely, you would have gone through health screening, and because of the health screening, we tend to admit people in Canada that are healthier. Now, this is separate from the refugee population. Refugees tend to have a poorer health status, but immigrants in general, apart from the refugees, tend to actually have a better health status than Canadian. However, as the years of residence in Canada increases, and there's an analysis that I did on the Canadian Health Major Survey that shows after about 5 years, there's a decline in immigrants' health in Canada. What is the influence of gender and income on mental health? I did an analysis of the Canadian Health Media Survey, which is a Statistics Canada survey, to look at the mental health of immigrants. First, I did one between 15 and 79 years old, and then I did another one between 6 to 18 years old. And we found that across individual outcomes, such as peer relationship problems, conduct problems, emotional problems, hyperactivity, and pro-social behavior, gender was significant except for peer relationship problems. So males tend to have lower odds of having normal scores than female as it relates to many of the variables, including conduct problem, hyperactivity, and pro-social behaviors, but females tend to have lower scores in terms of emotional problems. We analyzed the Canadian analysis of the Canadian Health Media Survey shows that there's increased diagnosis of mood disorders based on gender, lower income, sense of community, and unemployment. And I should mention here that we did this analysis several times and we manipulated our variable several times. No matter how much we manipulated our variable, two factors tend to be really strong. Community belonging. When people feel like they belong to a community, their mental health is more likely to increase. And the other thing is income. When people have a higher income, their mental health tends to increase. We also interviewed around 55 immigrant service providers across the province of Alberta. That was around 2017. And immigrant service providers talked about the challenge that immigrant women face. So one service provider said the loss of social network can be a huge factor for women, even more so than for men if they are not working. You can at least forge some networks at work, right? If you don't have access to those networks because you're staying at home, and again, language barriers come in here as well. Sometimes social barriers too, especially the husband either enforces staying at home for the wife, for example. So yeah, I would say women are far at risk. The other thing is I did this interview, I believe this is an interview that I did with immigrant service providers on temporary foreign workers experience in Canada to look at the experience of temporary foreign workers. And the results showed that gender intersect with immigration status and class status to influence the decisions that immigrant women face about their health in Canada. So one immigrant service provider said, like, we have seen that when they have their 2-year work permit, we have seen that they're being terminated. And of course, the employer will not say you're terminated because you're pregnant. So this is for pregnant temporary foreign workers. They will not say that, huh? Of course, it's illegal. But still, they can always quote it in a different manner. But I have in the past several occasions, like I've encountered probably 2 women who tell me that they would probably feel comfortable if it comes from me to have their baby child aborted. So your gender, your class status, and your immigration status influences decisions that women make about their bodies. Girls experience better social outcomes than boys due to intersecting influences on gender. So studying gender is not just limited to, or intersectional perspective, or feminist perspective, is not just limited to looking at women's experience. So there's intersecting influences based on the gender of the parent and also the gender of the child. So I see so many divorces, and the parents, the father is not involved, and that has more pressure on the male of the family, the kids, male kids, because the girls, yes, she will need the father, but the mother will really be helpful. Somebody she can copy, she can look into, she can try and be like, she could tell things that she doesn't tell anybody else. If there's no father figure, guess who's going to be the father figure for the boy? It can be anybody. So for this research, I interviewed about 75 immigrant parents, mainly African immigrant parents. And consistently, what I was told is the difficulties for single parent mothers to parent boys. So they tend not to have challenges in terms of parenting girls, but they tend to have much more challenges parenting boys. We're on the same side of the spectrum where all the girls not all, but majority of them have done really well. And then the boys are either in jail or getting killed or have criminal record. Like, it's really sad. Immigration status and route influences mental health. So refugees have distinct set of mental health needs because prior to arrival in Canada, they might have experienced physical or sexual abuse, experienced the stress of war, the loss of family members, and may have spent a significant amount of time in refugee camps. As a result, refugees are at risk. Also, a population that has risk is temporary foreign workers because they are in a tightrope. They don't know what's going to happen to them next, so they are always in a state of heightened awareness and stress. Immigration status is also a central factor in access to health care for immigrants. So this was an interview I did with the immigrant service providers on the needs of temporary foreign workers. And this person said the last thing they have in their mind is their health issue. And when a certain issue happens, they try to cover it up because part of having a successful immigration application is having a positive medical exam. There is a couple that we worked with recently whose husband contracted a liver disease and they did it from, but the doctors. But when they were forced to take the medical exam from the doctor provided by immigration, they failed. And that's the basis of their denial. So their whole family is now facing deportation. So this is a case of a temporary foreign worker who, of course, wanted to transition to a permanent resident status. But they know that for them to transition to a permanent resident, they must show proof that they're in good health. So because of that, the health conditions they have, they hide it so that they can just, be able to transition to permanent resident status. The only problem is at the end, they still have to take the exam. They failed the exam. The health condition is much worse at this stage. And of course, also, they face deportation. Racism contributes to mental health. And this, the first one is by a female, a Black female. And they not only talked about how racism contributes to your mental health at the present moment, but how it's internalized in the long term. So she said, I grew up with so much internalized anti-Blackness. God, I rated myself. I wanted to be white so bad. I wanted to have straight hair. I wanted to have lighter skin, I wanted to have smaller lips. And in that same interview, she talked about crossing the street here in Alberta, and someone threw a Slurpee at her and called her the N-word. And she also talked about several racist experiences that she's experienced, and she's continued to internalize this. And another one said, so I go to a mental health counselor and I say I'm experiencing racism. They'd be like, what? Oh, what? Are you sure? Okay, let's get you some other strategies. So they basically, hear about racism. The counselor doesn't know how to deal with it. They try to, scroll over it and move to another topic. There's also intersecting influences of language. And this was from a service provider on mental health. So he said, we have interpreters, but more so, we work with brokers because interpretation is one thing. To us, they are all Afghanis. To them, they are Afghanis from the that we are in liaison with the Taliban. They are the Afghanis who are in liaison with the Americans. They are the Afghanis who are from the Pashto tribe who don't want to have anything to do with the others. So if you just get an interpreter, you might have somebody who is Pashto, you get somebody who was in liaison with the Taliban, and this person is not going to tell you anything, right? Because they don't trust the interpreter. So oftentimes we think, the way to solve the world is, get an interpreter. But there's complexities in getting an interpreter, including also gender complexities. For example, in the case of domestic violence. But also here, you may also be thinking about pre-migration context and issues related to persecution and oppression. Community belonging was also discussed. So community belonging, as I said, in an analysis of Canadian health measure survey that we did that included 17,000 participants, we found that community belonging was one of the strongest factors that contribute to mental health. And one of, with the interviews that we did with service providers, a service provider talked about a woman that was packing, and she wanted to leave Canada. She wanted to go back to Syria because she was just so feeling isolated and stressed, and she wasn't in good mental health. And what they had to do is break her lease, move her to an area where she can find more support, more people that she can talk to, and that helped her in terms of her mental health. So all this that I have said begs the need for an intersectional approach. An intersectional approach that is not just integrated into programs, but also integrated into policy, including immigration policies. That, immigration status is not the only thing to consider. There's also, as we've said, the linguistic barriers that people experience, the issues related to class status that may prevent, for example, temporary foreign workers from having control over the decisions they make about their reproductive health. And there's also the issues related to gender and also issues related to racism. And of course, I know this earlier this week, MLA David Shepherd introduced the need to collect race-based data. And I would argue, and I am much in support of that race-based data must also be situated within context. Within context, including collecting social demographic status that really, really puts issues related to race in context. And I think that's about it for my presentation. And thank you so much for inviting me to this.
Bokula Salami. So much to think about. And this notion of community belonging, I'm so glad that you could make the time to join the organizers here at ICWA and the rest of us to impart your thoughts. I want to remind everybody that we're crunched with all of these fabulous speakers for time, but know that they are interested and willing to answer any questions you have. There's a little chat box there with Zoom. Feel free to pop a note in there, and I know that Esther and the staff will get that information to the individual speakers and start a dialogue on some of this important work as we continue into the 39th year, the 40th year for the ICWA. We've been delighted with some entertainment. We're going to enjoy some more now. So I'm hoping that I can ask you to stop the video in the corner, because we're going to throw to a recorded presentation that comes from Usha Gupta. So many of you may know Usha for the past 3 decades. She's worked tirelessly as an artist, as a teacher, a mentor, a choreographer, community advocate and supporter. She is a great influencer in the dance community here in our Edmonton. And I'm going to let her introduce the dance and the dancers. This is an 11 and 9-year-old, so Sia and Tarnii. So if we could, Esther, throw to Usha Gupta now, that would be swell.
Namaskar. I'm Usha Gupta, Artistic Director of Usha Kalaniketan. First of all, I would like to congratulate ICW, the one they have finished almost 38 years for their services. And thank you to them that they have invited me and my students to participate in such a beautiful, auspicious day, International Women's Day. Girls are going to do Pushpanjali, and they are offering that Pushpanjali towards International Women's Day. Pushpanjali is towards for Lord Ganesha, who is an invocation god, elephant-headed god, and a remover of difficulties. Choreographed by Usha Gupta, students of Usha Kalaniketan. Sit back and watch. Thank you.
Hey,
So beautiful. And I've been watching all of the compliments during that performance of Usha Gupta's students roll into the chat box there. 9 and 11-year-old dancers they were, Sienna and Tarnini. And I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Ankit Patel, who did the filming for that presentation for us for today. It's my pleasure now to introduce our final speaker of our event, the Indo-Canadian Women's Association 38th anniversary and a celebration of International Women's Day with the presenter Marnie Panis. Now, Marnie leads the diversity and inclusion team with one of Canada's largest employers and healthcare service providers. She has dedicated her career to creating safe, more welcoming and inclusive workplaces and communities. Marnie is also a transgendered woman who has been very transparent and open throughout her journey in the hopes of fostering acceptance through education and respectful dialogue. You can hear and you can see Marnie Panis on local, national, international media outlets. She has made appearances on the CBC, on CNN, on BBC, always willing to share her story and experience honestly and authentically. And you can learn more about her journey in her TED Talk. It's called Finding Courage, Conquering Fear. Please help me welcome warmly Marnie Panis to the Zoom mic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adrian. My name is Marnie Panis. I use she and her pronouns. I'm really grateful to be part of today's incredible event. I'm going to do my bit to turn on my parts. I'm going to share. Okay. Because I will have a brief video that I'm going to share as well. So thank you again. I am just so thrilled to be here. When I was asked to speak today, I know Jody was probably getting frustrated with me because it took me a long time to say yes, because I looked at all the amazing women, the people who were lining up to speak today, and I thought, why me? What could I possibly have to offer? So I thought about the women in my life, the people who I've gotten to know, who inspired me to become the woman that I am today, and the woman that I continue to seek to be. And so the first woman I want to talk about is Senator Mobina Jaffer. She's Canada's first Muslim senator, first African-born senator, and first senator of South Asian descent. She has dedicated her career to fighting for gender equality. I first met Senator Jaffer when I was giving testimony to the Senate hearings in support of Bill C-16 that would add gender identity and gender expression as protected grounds in Canada's Human Rights Act. Now, I want to share a brief clip of our exchange that day. It was her question that really speaks to why we're here today. So I really wanted you to listen to the words in her question. It's only a few seconds long. My answer was pretty great, don't get me wrong, but her question was really brilliant. So I'm going to take that moment to flip over to CPAC and share this very brief exchange.
Or ask. I think that's what we can ask.
You can hear it okay? Somebody could give you a nod?
Thank you, Senator Jaffer.
I'm going to mention this, but you mentioned Ms. Ogo, who won election in BC, and took a lot of strength for her to do it. And me just supporting her, I got a lot of hate mail, so I don't know what she got. But what I'd like to know, as a woman, I've always fought to be at the table to represent my point of view. And I believe the Senate changed when more women, and it will continue to change when women become 50% of the Senate. What issues we look at, what priorities we have, how we deal with issues, it changes when who is sitting around the table changes.
Absolutely.
When you're not sitting at the table, what does it do to you?
When you're not at the table, you're usually on the menu.
Devin?
So I will leave it there. Yes, her question really was about what does it mean to be at the table and representation. We heard a lot of folks talk about that already today, what it means to be at the table. Now, and of course my answer, that bill would Senator Jaffer and I would remain friends after that, and she continues to inspire me and to mentor me. Now that bill would later become law in 2017, only the third country in Canada at the time to do so. Now we can and should be proud of this, but the true measure of any human rights legislation is how these words on paper are put into action. That people feel safer, more included, able to be their full self, to be treated as equals where they work, where they live, and where they play. And there have been many meaningful steps that have been taken since that time, but there are many constant reminders that we still have much work to do. Just last fall, I was lecturing in a Alberta university, not too far from here. And I was giving this lecture. I was living this lecture, and without my knowledge, it was being live streamed to a well-known hate site. I didn't know that until I left the stage. Now, given the nature of the many comments of the viewers, there was significant concerns for my own personal safety, and I had to be escorted off the university campus by city police. And generally speaking, even as a trans woman, I do pretty good. I have many privileges. I'm white, I'm able-bodied, I look like what a woman should look like in a very binary world. I literally had a seat at the table with Senator Jaffer and many of her colleagues, and still there are places that I can't go today for my own personal safety. Sometimes here's in a lecture or certainly online, there's still things that I have to think about. Where can I go where I feel safe? Last December, Canada outlawed the barbaric practice of conversion therapy in an unprecedented swiftness through both houses at the federal level. And yet 60 members of parliament voted in favor of continuing this harmful, abusive practice. That was just only a few months ago. In the United States, as I sit here and talk to you today, the Human Rights Campaign reminds us that at this very moment, there are 270 pieces of anti-LGBTQ2 bills moving through state legislatures nationwide. And of those, nearly half specifically target the trans community. 3 anti-trans laws aimed at children were passed just this last Thursday alone, in one day, during a pandemic, during a war. This is the priority for some, attacking trans youth. At the same time, many of these laws are attacking rights of women and children of all genders to access basic and necessary health care. These are all reminders that we're always just one election away from having many of the rights that we all work so hard to be stripped away. As a proud Canadian, Ukrainian, transgender woman, my heart is heavy with the invasion of and the war in Ukraine. A war like so many others that further exposes the many inequities people experience right now because of the color of their skin, their place of origin, their gender, their sexual orientation. At this moment, I think about transgender people in Ukraine, and in particular, transgender women. You see, unlike here in Canada, transgender and non-binary people in Ukraine cannot change their gender markers on their government IDs. This makes it nearly impossible for most to cross borders to file refugee and immigration papers. And transgender women are seen as men and subject to fighting in the army because of the current martial law that's in place. They are staying and hiding merely to survive. All of these examples I share can feel very overwhelming, can paralyze us into doing nothing. But there are many things that we can do to support each other, to uplift each other. So I want to really focus on two stories and leave you with two stories of two more women who have made a meaningful impact during key moments of my life. I transitioned in 2015 while working at the Stollery Children's Hospital. Well, no, that's not true. I actually transitioned because I worked at the Stollery Children's Hospital, because I worked at Alberta Health Services, because I worked in a place where people were in the business to care, like truly care about each other, our patients and our families. And I knew if I couldn't be me, the real me here, I couldn't be me anywhere. But I was scared. I loved my job so much. I loved the patients and families that I worked with, my colleagues. But I knew that discrimination in the workplace for trans women was so very high. So many of us are underemployed, unemployed. I just wanted to keep my job, a job that I loved so much. That was, to me, would have been the measure of success in my transition, was to merely just keep my job. That was it. The day that I walked into the hospital for the first time as me, the senior operations officer of the Stollery Children's Hospital, her name is Tracy McDonald. She made a point of greeting me on my first day, brought me flowers, welcoming me back. A few weeks later, she came up to me and said, "Marnie, we're posting a new leadership role. You should apply for it." It never occurred to me to apply for anything beyond what I was doing. Now remember, the measure of my success was just to keep my job. I dared not dream that I could actually grow in my career. So I applied for that job. And folks, I nailed the interview. I owned it. I just blew them away. I never felt more confident in any interview. I answered each question with confidence and grace and skill. It was a performance. I never got the job, but that's okay, because the person who did actually get the job truly was the best candidate. But it was the best job that I never got. When Tracy told me that I didn't get the job, she said that I would be a great leader here one day. And not the kind of leader that manages and directs and tells people what to do. Those days are over. You would be a leader who inspires people to join in, to come with you, who want to be part of your work and your vision. That's the leader you're going to be here one day. And as I said, it became the best job I never got, because she saw something in me that I never allowed to see in myself. So I started to apply for other positions where I could grow in my career. And I got many interviews. And then I had options I never had before, all because another woman, a leader, said to me, "Marnie, you should apply for this job. You'd be a great leader." We all have the power to be that person for somebody else. My final story involves our president and CEO, Dr. Verna Yu. Sooner after I left the Stollery and I joined a provincial team, Dr. Yu called me out of the blue. The phone rings and she says, hi Marnie, it's Verna. I'm like, yes, Dr. Yu, I know who you are. And she said, I'm meeting with the health minister tomorrow. Oops, sorry. I'm meeting with the health minister tomorrow. Can you come by my office and tell me everything you want me to know about healthcare for transgender people in Alberta? I want to hear what you have to say, which in itself was a powerful question to ask of me. So I walked over and we talked and she listened and she wrote. And for 90 minutes, I told her all the things. She was ready to hear everything that I had to say. The next day, she calls me again. She says, "Marnie, this is Verna." I'm like, "Yes, I know who you are, Dr. Yu." I was all fangirling. And she said, "You know what? You have all the knowledge. You should really be there with me." And so together we walked to the Alberta legislature and as along her side, and we sat at the table once again, getting a seat at the table with the minister and the minister's staff. And as the questions were being asked, the conversations were happening. I can't even tell you, I can't count how many times Dr. Yu turned and deferred to me and said, "Oh, Marnie knows this. This is her expertise." And that was a most profound experience for me, because over and over, she modeled true sponsorship as a leader by elevating and amplifying the voices of the people around her. She shows incredible leadership all the time, but that's what she did to me. And you know what? When I think back to what Tracy said at the Stollery, she was right. I did become a leader. I did move into a position where now I get to manage a whole province and lead the work for diversity and inclusion for Canada's largest healthcare system. And now I have the opportunity to be that leader for others that Tracy and Dr. Yu were before me and inspired me to be. And I don't get it right all the time, I admit that, but now I can take what I got from those individuals and use that to create and elevate and increase in visibility for the people around me. And now I have the opportunity to be that leader, that kind of leader that so many folks are on here, and leaders that I'm continually inspired by. So many women. I'm this leader because of the individuals I talked about, like Senator Jaffer, like Councillor Tang, Dr. Salami, who I've gotten to know over the last little while working together, the Honorable Sama Lakini, of course, and my dear friend, His Worship, Mayor Sohi, friends that I've looked to as leaders in my life. And I know as we continue to fight for gender equality, and as the world is fighting around us, we may not be able to change the world, and it can feel very heavy, but folks, we do have the power to change the world for the people around us. So I invite you, I challenge you, I encourage you to support each other, to elevate each other, to find those moments where you can uplift each other and say, here is my friend, Dr. Salami. She's an amazing expert in gender equality. That here is my friend, Andrea, my colleague who's joining me today, saying she's an exceptional person. Let's uplift each other and find opportunities to create visibility for each other. And then we can change the world for each other. And when enough of us change that world with each other, then truly we can create this movement. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this incredibly special day. And I just really grateful to spend this time with all of you. Thank you.
Marnie Panis, so grateful to have heard her words. And, I reflect on the inspiration, this notion of joining, of elevating, of amplifying, all of which she has done today. And when you're not at the table, you're on the menu usually. Wow, what a one-liner. The timing and the poignancy of that, that is going to stay with me. Our final speaker for today. Thank you again, Marnie, for making time in your busy schedule. And on a personal note, I just want to reflect as we live and see what is going on in the Ukraine, our thoughts with the people there. I know you mentioned your heritage and connections. I know that we have people who are coming here on a plane as we speak to our fair province. And our population here in Alberta reflected so largely in the Ukrainian population, about 10% of our current makeup. So we keep those people in our thoughts too as we celebrate today. And a fabulous conclusion to our time together. So I would like to bring it around full circle now and throw the Zoom mic back to Jody Zabolowski for a few final words.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and thanks to all of you for attending today. We could not have done this event without all of you in attendance and our sponsors. A big thanks goes to Rick Mallett of James H. Brown, Tracy Brown of the Brown Law Group, Service Credit Union, Mr. A.J. Bardwaj, Mr. Guru Sharon Bhatia, David and Karen Bain, Prakash Mulak, Sean Mudru, and Christine McLeod. Thanks so much on behalf of our clients and those whom we help and support. If anyone would like to make a contribution to our organization, you can do so easily through our website, www.icedmonton.org. A special thanks to all the organizational sponsors for the Indo-Canadian Women's Association. We appreciate each and every one of you because you help us assist our clients and provide wonderful services to women, men, seniors, and youth. A special thanks to the staff behind the scene, especially Esther, the fantastic office manager. Thanks as well to the board members who volunteer for us on a regular basis and the program committee who helped plan this event. We can all agree that Adrienne Lamb did an awesome job here today and kept the program flowing so well. Thanks, Adrienne, so much on behalf of all of us. Back to you, Adrienne, for the final thoughts.
Thanks, Jody. That's kind. And I do want to say thank you to all the dignitaries, the speakers, the entertainers, the supporters who made time out of their Saturday to come and to join us today. I want to congratulate the Indo-Canadian Women's Association on celebrating 38 wonderful years in the city of Edmonton. And I know the last two celebrations have been via Zoom, and that hasn't necessarily been ideal. So what we'll do is we'll hope for good things and hope that you'll all join us in person for the 39th celebration next year. And again, thank you to all for making this event possible.